The role of ocean on climate has been a topic that society has not been paid much attention to. But the ocean has a central role, and I'm going to bring to you the ocean's point of view that Oceano Azul Foundation has been working with in trying to bring this to society. And in fact, since the last 5 years, we have all these reports coming from the Intergovernmental Panel for Climate and for Biodiversity, compiling all the evidence showing us what's happening in this relationship between ocean and climate and where do we need to focus. We know that simplifying this message to society is very important, and the message today is clear. We are destroying the planet, we are heading towards the apocalypse, and we have the evidence showing us exactly why this is happening. And so it's very important to try to focus on solutions. But to do that, we need to bring the evidence. And we know that we have two problems. The first problem is that we know that we have a climate emergency, but we also know that we have a species extinction crisis. And these two topics is what I'm going to talk to you about. On the climate emergency, we know that in the ocean, there is a triple effect. The ocean is absorbing more than 90% of the excess heat produced by the CO2 that we put in the atmosphere. It's also absorbing more than a quarter of the CO2. And because of this, it's becoming warmer, it's becoming more acidic, but also because of pollution, we have less oxygen in the ocean today. And so this triple effect is threatening the marine systems and is threatening society. And if we look at the last 150 years of the climate evidence, and everything in blue that you see here is below average, everything in red is above average, we see the problem. We see that the warming of the planet is happening, is accelerating, and it's being caused by our society, by our model of development, by our economy. We also know that this heat is landing in the ocean, and so we are seeing excess heat coming. We are seeing all these heat waves happening, and all of this has happening in the last century. Also, because of the amounts of CO2 that we are putting in the atmosphere, we live in a world which is very, very different from the world that we evolved in. So if you look at the last 800,000 years of CO2 levels in the atmosphere, you see a very, very steep spike related to the Industrial Revolution. This is also changing the ocean chemistry because the CO2 that is being absorbed acidifying the ocean, and this is huge, has a huge impact on marine organisms, and moving into the future, there will be a challenge for these organisms to continue to survive. Because of pollution and because of warming, the ocean is also losing oxygen, and this is having already impact in many, many regions around the planet with depleted levels of oxygen in coastal areas, but also in the open ocean where some animals, such as the big predators, are not even able now to dive deep enough because they don't have enough oxygen to power their muscles when they are hunting. Less known to society is the problem of impacts on biodiversity, of the species extinction crisis. But in fact, we know today that in the ocean, only 30% of the ocean can be considered intact now. And we also know that more than 2/3 of the ocean is impacted by multiple factors at the whole scale. So the scale of the problem is huge. The scale of the problem is, it matters because the solutions need to be able to help here, and the solutions need to be able to tackle this scale. In fact, for some populations of animals, we know that today we are managing populations that are less than 10% of they were before we started the industrial fishing in the ocean less than 100 years ago. And so we know the problem. We know that we have these two challenges to tackle, and we have the science to back what we know. But since we know, what are we doing today? And if you look at the climate profiles of the Paris Agreement, the curve that we need to reduce emissions is the green one, where you see that we need to steeply decrease the emissions. We are not doing that today. We see also that the commitments by countries bring us to a world by the end of the century on 2 to 3 degrees warming. which is a world unparalleled from the evolution of humans since we are here as a species. But worse than that, the business as usual that we have today is landing us in a world very, very different with 4 to 5 degrees increase. So we have a huge problem in our hands, and we need to do something to tackle that. So the question is, what is preventing us to bring these solutions? What is preventing us to tackle the two main issues that we need to do, which are, one, we need to decarbonize our economies, but two, we also need to value nature so that we transition from the economy of destruction into the economy of reconstruction, which is the challenge that we have in front of us. And the oceans and the ocean animals are part of that equation, but it's something which is invisible to society. And I'm bringing to you the pictures of some of these animals that you can see in the ocean, such as these lionfish, or this seahorse, the scorpionfish, these parrotfish in the Maldives, or these batfish in Thailand. You see a hawkfish here. You see two lizardfish, a frogfish, or even a tiger shark. And if you listen with attention to all the names of these animals, all of them have land animal names, because there is a disconnect. We don't connect with the ocean because we don't see the ocean. We even give names to the animals in the ocean of things such as jewels, as you see here, or fans, or pipes, or desert feather, or even hammers. And so because of this disconnect, this is part of the problems we have in managing the solutions. When we look at an animal like this lion here, the words that come to our mind behind what we see are these ones. So we look at this lion as a representative of wildlife, as an individual, as a representative of nature. But if you look at exactly the same predator in the ocean, well, things change a bit. If you look at this tuna, which is the equivalent of the lions that we have in the ocean, well, we think of it as food, we talk about a resource, and we think about extracting the maximum possible biomass of these animals. And this is part of the disconnect we need to solve in moving forward. And this is part of climate solutions as well, as I would like to argue to you. And so looking at how to bridge this divide and how to think about the way forward, we have tools to tackle that, and science also shows us that we have tools. The most powerful tool that we have are marine protected areas, because in fact, to reconstruct the ocean, which is what is all about today, we know that if we stop extraction, if we stop the impacts, the ocean recovers. In marine protected areas, you have more biomass, you have more species, you have more diversity. And this addition of biomass is also an important climate solution. Why? Well, because all the carbon that is going to be extracted by biomass is going to land on the animals instead of being acidifying the ocean, for instance. And they work. We dived in areas such as this one that were deserts 20 years ago. Here in Mexico, the community got together, protected this area, and now it's a paradise of fish, and it's a paradise for economy as well, because the economies value this nature. And the science shows us that this tool works if it's done properly. The biomass rebounds, the species are protected, and so we have also a climate solution, but we need to use the standards, the scientific standards, in order for these areas to be that solution. And what we're talking about essentially is rebuilding nature, rebuilding our relationship in nature, and rebuilding the ocean through tools such as marine protected areas, so that we can have part of the solutions, what we call nature-based solutions for the climate challenge. And you can see here some of those nature-based solutions where our economic development can be done. We can still have economic prosperity, but at the same time having a healthy ocean and a healthy planet. And this is possible, and this also brings tools for the climate challenge. In the Oceano Foundation, we're also doing some of the, exploring some tools to value nature, because it's very important to try to find other ways of using the wealth of the ocean to also bring wealth to society. And one of the programs we have is called Blue Bio Value, also with Gulbenkian Foundation. And here we are essentially bringing the solutions from the ocean into the decarbonization of society with economic development behind blue biotechnology. And we have an acceleration program for startups, which are bringing these solutions to the pipeline. But we also have an ideation program for universities where researchers can bring their ideas are valued. And essentially what we are working to do is to decouple the resource extraction from the economic development. And in this way, valuing nature, valuing blue natural capital, and at the same time, bringing climate solutions to the table. And so we firmly believe that healthy oceans are essential for human development, and also that we need to bridge this gap between society and nature. And this can be done. We have the tools to do it. And these animals that you see here, these whales, are also climate solutions at the same time, because they absorb as much carbon as thousands of trees. And so we have extracted most of the whales during the whaling period. Some populations are reduced to 10% of what they were before. If we put all those whales in the water again, we also have not only a healthy planet, a healthy ocean, but we also have climate solutions that help us to mitigate the impacts that we face and help us to drive the curve into the 1.5 degree where we need to go. And so the ocean is a very, very powerful solution, but we need to implement these measures, and we need to do it now.